Behold, two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were conversing with each other about all these things which had taken place. And it came about that while they were conversing and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are these words that you are exchanging with one another as you were walking?" And they stood still, looking sad. And one of them, named Cleopas, answered and said to him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem and unaware of the things which have happened here in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "The things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word in the sight of God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him up to the sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, it is the 3rd day since these things happened."
Daughter, this is too much to bear. He was our only hope, and now he is dead. They defiled him with their insults. They killed him. They wouldn't even let us give him a proper burial. This morning when Mary Magdalene and the other women came back, they told us that his body was gone. I was so angry. It's a lie.
Yes, Abba, I know the story was hard to believe, and yet...
Daughter, certainly you don't believe that 2 men dressed in royal robes would be inside a cold, dark tomb. And these men were saying that Jesus had risen from the dead.
Well, all the amazing things that happened to him last week, I don't suppose I find it so impossible to believe. A week ago, he rode into Jerusalem, with thousands cheering him. 3 days ago, when he was crucified, thousands mocked him. What happened, Abba?
What happened? I don't know. I only know that we had to leave Jerusalem. I want to go home, to Emmaus. We've been away too long.
Yes, Abba, I know. But let's stop here to rest a little while. You were with him for many seasons. You loved him, Abba. There were others who loved him too. They were with us on the way to Golgotha, the day that he was crucified. Remember Mary, his mother, was there? She used to lead the women in prayer. She always began, "For he, the mighty one, is holy and has done great things for me." She was thankful she had been given the honor of being the mother of Jesus, the Messiah.
I wonder if she still feels that way, honored. Is it such an honor to be a mother whose son died in such a shameful and disgraceful way? I wonder what she remembers now that the cheers have faded.
Well, I think perhaps she has marvelous memories of a sweet baby boy. Fingers and toes, tummy tickles, and the cries and fears she comforted in the night. She would tell us all the funny things he did as a boy in the play yard with the other children. Then she would laugh. What would become of her? Where would she go?
John will take care of her. Do you not remember Jesus' command from the cross that he should take care of her? As John was leading her away, I noticed that she paused and she touched your arm and spoke to you. What did she say to you?
But we had hoped.
Soft sounds of swallow. Like a good mother would, she learned his cries. If he'd awake with a bellyache from hunger or fright, but now and then, sometimes when the dark would descend, he would weep a dark so deep for all her love she couldn't comprehend. Her warm, loving counter, his strong, gentle hand, his dark and bewildered eyes, could they understand that this baby she's given him is theirs for a time? In truth, came to give himself the treasure and the ransom of mankind.
Yes, we had hoped he was to be the ransom of mankind.
Did you see Bartimaeus, the blind man that was healed by Jesus because of his faith? He was there, weeping, as Jesus looked down at him from the cross. Eyes that were once blind and cold and unseeing as stone were filled with sorrow. Tears were streaming down his face. I wonder, did Jesus give him his sight to see that sight?
The gentle healer, he touched blind eyes, the darkness left away. More than the blindness, he took their sins away. The gentle healer came into our town today. The gentle healer came to our town today. He spoke one word and that's all he had to say. The one who had died just rose up straightway, and the gentle healer came into our town today. Oh, he seems like just an ordinary man, with dirty feet but broad and gentle hands. The words that he says are hard to understand, and yet he seems like just an ordinary man. The gentle healer, he left our town today. Folks from town who follow him, they say that the gentle healer is the truth, the light, the way.
When Bartimaeus was healed, right away he joined us on our journey to follow Jesus from Jericho to Jerusalem. Other people that were healed by Jesus, they left their homes to follow him. Our numbers were growing. People would flock to him from all around. It was a time filled of hope and promise. But I sensed something else, a sadness, a heaviness from Jesus himself.
The thankful one was there too, traveling with us to Jerusalem and on to Golgotha. She had joined us when we were on the way to Jerusalem through the area between Samaria and Galilee. It was there Jesus healed 10 lepers.
Yes, I remember their cries as we entered the village. They were outcasts, forbidden to live in the town. As we were walking by, we could see them across the ravine that separated the road from them. And I could see some women were stooping over their cooking fires. And then all of a sudden, there was a group of them that came right next to us. And then they noticed us, and they stepped back, and they cried, "Unclean! Unclean! Unclean! Unclean!"
Unclean.
Unclean. Unclean. Unclean. Unclean.
She was the only one who thanked him. Let me be like her. I would like to have one more chance to thank him. One more touch from his hand.
The thankful one was with us as we entered Jerusalem. She began to keep company with Mary and the other women that were with Jesus. You know, at first we thought that it was strange that a Samaritan would be with us, because for so many generations our people had hated each other. We had separated ourselves from them when they started bowing down to strange gods in their temples. Oh, but now we both had hope in him. And it was that shared hope that helped quench the fires of hatred. You know, Pontius Pilate would have let Jesus go, but the crowd would have none of it. Even Herod would not condemn him. He sent him back to Pilate. Then the crowds went crazy. They shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Then they demanded that that murderer and rabble-rouser, Jesus Barabbas, be released in his place.
We had hoped Jesus the Messiah, who had come to rescue Israel, would be released. Instead, Jesus, the Father, was put to death instead of criminal Barabbas. Barabbas, son of the Father. Jesus, son of the Father.
I am Jesus. Jesus Barabbas. My name Barabbas means son of a father. Yet, I remember having no father. And as for kin, I only count those who stand with me shoulder to shoulder against these oppressive Roman swines. I saw this other Jesus, this Jesus of Nazareth. Some claim that he was the Messiah. I followed him like the hordes of others, because I wanted to know what this great Messiah had to say. What he had to say about how we would rid this land of the Romans. How we would crush them beneath our feet. Yet, he spoke of peace and love. Love and peace. I had no use for this Savior. My Savior, my Messiah, was to be vengeful, was to be a leader, was to be a warrior. He spoke of peace, the only peace that we would recognize in our land would be when the streets were swept clean with the blood of the Romans. I would have nothing to do with it. The next time I saw him, I was standing next to Pilate, and this Jesus of Nazareth was standing on the other side. We were both bound in Roman chains. Things were moving very fast. Things were happening. I heard them call my name, Barabbas, Barabbas. Pilate turned to this Jesus and shook his head. And the crowd yelled again, "Free Barabbas! Free Barabbas! Free Barabbas!" And in a moment's time, my hands were unshackled, my legs were set free, and I was thrusted out into the crowds. My people were there. I was thankful for being there. And Jesus, this Nazarene, looked down on us, not down in anger, but he looked down in pity. Pity. I was so ashamed. I was filled with the sorrow of this pitiful drama coming to an end. This innocent man was about to die because the crowds cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him! We have no king but Caesar. Crucify him!" And he was about to die up on a cross for me. I was the murderer. I was prepared to pay the cost of my crusade, and yet he was going to bear the pain for me. When they thrusted the crown of thorns down on his head, I could feel every thorn puncture his flesh and cause him to bleed. Why? I didn't understand. Why was this man willing to die for me? And then I realized at that moment that Jesus, I was the son of a man. And this other Jesus, the Christ, he was the Son of the Father. He was willing to put upon his shoulders the burden, the pain, the wrath that I deserved. This Christ, he wore my crown of thorns.
And though he taught me how
horrible way to die, the most brutal of deaths. But for Jesus, his suffering began long before the spikes were driven into his hands. After the Passover meal, he went out to pray in the Olive Garden called Gethsemane. It was there that the traitor Judas betrayed him to the mob. They dragged him through a mockery of a trial. They beat him and scourged him unmercifully. But he made no defense. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter.
The next day, they led him to Golgotha. The streets were lined with people. Great crowds trailed along behind. People spat on him and struck him with branches and sticks. They shouted cruel insults and mocked him, calling, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They made him wear a crown of thorns on his head. It was scratched and bleeding. The hot morning sun beat down, and flies swarmed around his wounds. Such suffering. Many grief-stricken women along the road tried to stop and touch him and give him comfort. Such sorrow and weeping on this way to the cross.
The
down the road. Greetings, friend. I am Cleopas of Emmaus, and this is my daughter. Join us.
Friends, you seem in deep discussion about something. What are you concerned about?
You must be the only person that has not heard the things that have been going around here the last few days.
What things?
The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth. He was a prophet who did wonderful miracles, a mighty teacher before God and man. He was arrested by the chief priests and rulers. They condemned him to death.
I'll never forget what happened that day. He fell to the road under the weight of his cross. The centurion that was leading the way, he grabbed someone from the crowd and made them carry the cross. The sky grew dark and the wind picked up as we made our way out of the gate of the city up to the rocky mound, Golgotha, the place of the skull. Then the centurion gave Jesus a jar to drink from, but he refused it. The sky grew even darker and the wind was whistling around. And the crowds had rushed in and I couldn't see what was happening anymore. I heard the hammer strike and I heard the sounds of moaning and anguish, and then I looked and I saw him lifted up.
I had never enjoyed executions, but I had never shied from them either. It was part of the job. It was our function to add an air of imperial dignity to what was otherwise a rather sordid affair. Well, perhaps dignity is not the right word. Some of my men would holler and cheer and chant as the nails went in, as if they were at a gladiatorial game, rather than a public execution. Mongrels, many of these men. Quality of allegiance has been declining. There were 3 of them. The first 2, common criminals, barely worth the sweat, wood, and iron necessary to crucify. And the third, something else. A Messiah, a Jewish savior. Not that he was the first, granted. It seemed that Messiahs have been very popular lately. Many of these were crazed, dirty, angry men, but able to draw a crowd like that filthy Barabbas, or that fellow they call the Baptist. But this one was different somehow. When they brought him in, he was resolute, his face like flint, stone. I admired his courage, the way he stood up to the blows from battle-hardened fists, the lashes of the whip, the spitting. He remained unbowed, even when he was presented with the instrument of his destruction. I had seen many brave, condemned men crumble when they came face to face with their own cross, but not this one. If I had not known that he was a superstitious Jew, I would have thought him a Roman by the way he comported himself. And not that I had not had pity for these Jews, clutching their scrolls, listening for the voice of their God in every clap of thunder. I believed that if there were gods, they had no concern with us. And all in my circle felt the same. Yes, we made the ritual sacrifices out of civic obligation, but we knew that our gods were but metaphors, symbols. And we bowed in worship to the emperor, but we knew that we in the Legion kept him in power, and we could remove him if he failed to make us happy. But the superstitious, I believed, they needed their gods because they feared. They feared the dark. They feared the unknown. And most of all, they feared death. I believed that death was merely a part of nature, and to fear death was to fear nature, and to fear nature was simply to be child. I believed that we were all ants scurrying about on a burning log. You could scurry about in fear, or you could stand still and hold your place. Either way, we were all to be consumed. Better to stand like a man. One of my fallen comrades had inscribed on his tomb, I was not, I was, I am not. I believed that that was all that could be known, and therefore all that should be said. That is what I believed. And yet, when we raised him on that cross, and when I looked at him up there, broken, bleeding, I felt a strangeness inside. Not pity. I had always felt pity at these affairs. This was a feeling of dread, a feeling of emptiness. I felt as if I were teetering on the edge of some great abyss. I looked at him there, hanging, dying, alone. All the rabble who had followed him had fled. There were just a few left now. I felt a fear that I had never felt before. I felt my own death in his. I tasted my own extinction. Somehow, I came to realize the horror of living alone in a godless, pitiless universe. And I who had seen countless men die, many by my own hand, I felt afraid. Then, the most amazing thing happened. He raised his head. And through the blood and the grime, his eyes raised. They met mine. And I do not know how this is possible. But I felt him. I felt him inside me, at the very door of my heart, asking to enter. I did not know how this was possible, but I did know that if I let him in, I could never again be the man that I was. I could never believe the things that I had believed. Everything would change. That seemed such little consequence. So I opened my heart. I lowered the barricades of logic, arrogance, and cynicism, and I begged him come in. And I felt him enter my heart. I felt him indwell within me. I felt his presence, and through his presence, I felt the ultimate presence. I had heard others talk of sensing some divine presence before, but I had always scoffed. But now it rose in me like a tide. And I sensed that my sense of isolation and aloneness was self-imposed. That this cold, pitiless universe that I had feared was a facade behind which there dwelt a loving Father. And I felt such love and forgiveness as I had never known. I felt that someone had known me like no friend, no lover, no comrade in arms had ever known me. I felt he knew every black sin in my heart. I had done much evil in the name of Rome. I had always known it. But I felt that my uniform, my rank, and my standing in the community would somehow shield me from the responsibility of my own actions. But he saw those things as dirty rags. Yet he loved me anyway. I don't know how long I stood there in this feeling, this being awash in his presence. It may have been minutes, it may have been hours, but I know that I came from my trance when he threw back his head and cried something aloud in a Semitic tongue that I didn't understand. Then he gazed down at some of those who were at the very foot of the cross and said some things that I couldn't hear. And I watched his head drop lower. His muscles tightened and then relaxed in the final spasms. I had seen this hundreds of times, but I had never felt it. And I watched as he hitched his last few breaths, and as that last breath left his lips, there was a silence, as if the whole world had stopped breathing with him. And I saw the sky darken, and I saw the lightning rend the clouds, and the thunder boom all around. I felt the earth quake beneath my feet, and I fell to my knees with the strength of my conviction, and I cried out, "Surely this was the Son of God!"
I am crucified with Christ, therefore I no longer live. Jesus Christ now lives in me. I am crucified with Christ, therefore I no longer live. Jesus Christ now lives in me. Therefore I no longer live. Jesus Christ now lives in me. I am crucified with Christ, therefore I no longer live. Jesus Christ now lives in me. Embrace the cross where Jesus suffered, though it will cost all you claim as yours. Your sacrifice will seem small beside the treasure. Eternity can't measure what Jesus holds in store. Embrace the love the cross requires. Cling to the one whose heart knew every pain. Receive from Jesus fountains of compassion. Only He can fashion your heart to move as His. Oh, wondrous cross, our desires rest in you. Oh, Jesus, make us whole. To face with courage our shame and disgrace, you bore upon your shoulders. Embrace the light that comes from dying. Come trace the steps the Savior walked for you. An empty tomb concludes Golgotha's sorrow. Endure then till tomorrow your cross of suffering. Embrace the cross. Embrace the cross. The cross of Jesus.
dead. Some of the disciples took his body and put it into a tomb. But we had hoped that he would lead us to throw the Romans out.
Foolish people, why is it so hard for you to believe what the prophets have told you?
What did the prophet say?
They said that the Christ must suffer before he entered his glory.
Friend, you seem to know much about what the prophets have written. Please join us as we walk. Tell us more. It is late now. Please, stay with us tonight. It is already dark.
Father, bless this bread.
Jesus? All this time? It was him all this time? Jesus?
We must return to Jerusalem right away. We must tell them that he is risen.